Okay, in this lesson we're going to look at drawing ellipses. An ellipse is a really important perspective shape because basically an ellipse is a circle in perspective. If I put a circle inside a square, you can see it will touch the middle of each tangent line in those points right there. So what happens when if we draw this square here in 1 point perspective, even less, so 30 degree maybe. So what happens with an ellipse is it's actually a symmetrical shape, so it will fit into this, and it actually has a symmetrical, you can fold it over and it's the same on both sides. But let's cross this. What you can see is the perspective middle is actually higher than the symmetrical middle. That's important to remember when you start constructing things out of ellipses. Okay, so that's all for the theory for now. Now to the motor skills involved. It's very difficult to draw an ellipse carefully. So it's not a good idea to try to draw an ellipse slowly. It's much better to try and draw an ellipse like this. So what I'm doing is my pen is very close to the page. It's almost touching, and my hand is just gliding over the paper lightly. I'm going to ghost that movement in, so I'm not touching, and I'm going to go around until it feels nice and smooth. And when I think it's going well, then I touch down. Now that's something you're going to have to practice. You'll find that sometimes it goes better, sometimes it goes worse. Sometimes they get a little flat spot, so see, here's a little flat spot. Sometimes, you get a kink in it. It's much harder to draw a really small ellipse than a bigger one, so I try to draw quite big. And also the tendency is to draw, it's easier to draw quite flat ellipses like this, but you also need to practice drawing quite round ellipses. So a little bit more theory. An ellipse has what we call a major and a minor axis. So the major axis is the symmetrical division through the ellipse, in the longest symmetrical division through the ellipse. So that would be the major axis in this. The minor axis is the short symmetrical division. Those lines are important because when we're going to draw a cylinder shape, you want to start actually by drawing the rotational axis, and then you draw your ellipse, and after you've drawn your ellipses you connect them like this. So to practice, what I'd like you to do is basically draw some shapes, some cross shapes, try to get your ellipses moving smoothly and hitting those points. Ideally you want to go around maybe twice, 3 times, but if you have to go around like I did here 10 times, then you just do it until you feel it's okay. You want to remember, an ellipse is not going to be the perfect edge. It's really a suggestion of the shape. So sometimes less is more. Okay, so that's the practice. What I'd like you to do is fill 2 or 3 pages, and the next week just spend all your spare time drawing different kinds of ellipses, and if you feel the urge, you can always make cups and vases and that sort of thing out of them. The perspective rules we'll talk about next week.